and today we want to enter a new section. I want to talk about variables today. Well, you remember how when we did our simple mathematics in the previous lessons, we had something like this, okay? We had ans that was created and said equals to 4, and we said this was a variable. We want to look into what a variable is today and give details about that. So, what's a variable? Notice this. The moment we say 2 plus 2, it gives you ans is equals to 4. Okay? So what has just happened, it has created a certain name, ans, and given it the value of the answer of our command. Okay? So it has stored the value of 4 into this name, ans. So ans represents a space in memory, okay, in the computer's memory, where our result has been temporarily stored. So for example, if I say ans right now, look at that, it gives me 4. Okay, so our result has been stored in the memory such that we can do anything with it by just retrieving this space with the name ans, which we gave to that particular memory space. So that would be an initial definition of a variable, right? It is a name that we give to a space in memory that is for us to be able to remember where we have stored a particular value. Okay, so we store a particular value inside a name in memory such that we are able to retrieve it at any time. Okay, so what we're seeing here is MATLAB creating a variable by default, okay? But then today we want to learn how to create our own variable. How do we store our data in memory? Well, to store a variable, we simply follow the syntax variable name, okay? Variable name equal to variable value. That's all. As simple as that. The same way you write in mathematics. For example, you say let x be equals to 2, let x be equals to 3, or when you're looking for x, maybe you're solving the roots of a particular polynomial function. At the end of the day, you have x to be equal to that. It means that the value of x at that particular given point is that particular. So let's look at something. So if I say, for example, x, which is a variable name that I'm giving now, is equal to 5, enter, look at that. It has created the variable x equals to 5, and you can see it right here, okay? So MATLAB reminds me, it echoes the answer of my execution, and it creates the variable right here with the value 5, as we can see. I can then use that particular variable to do any operation. So for example, if I say x plus 5, right? What is that supposed to give me? The value of x at this moment is 5, okay? And then I have plus 5, so the answer is 10, and it stores it in the ans. Why does it do this? It does this because this particular execution has not been stored in any variable. Therefore, by default, MATLAB creates a variable called ans, which stores your temporal or your most recent execution. Okay, so if I want this stored in a different variable, say for example y, I will say y is equal to x plus 5. Okay, and a new variable y will be created that will have the value of 10. Okay, good. So a variable name can be anything. It can be anything you want, okay? But there are rules to follow in order to create a proper variable name. The very first thing you should know is that a variable name must start with a particular letter. It cannot start with a number. It cannot start with a special symbol. It must start with a letter. So I cannot say, for example, 9x is equal to, or let me use a different name, 9 Loic is equal to 5. That would work, okay? So it gives me an error and they say unexpected MATLAB expression. But on the other hand, if I start with the letter and I say, for example, Loic, even if I say L9 Oic, okay, equal to 5, that works, okay? So the very first rule is that it must start with a letter. Once it starts with a letter, it can follow with any combination of numeric data and letter. Okay, no spaces are allowed. I can't say L9 oik like this equals 5. No, that's not correct. So no special character is allowed. In fact, no special character except from the underscore. So if I say L and I say underscore 9 oik, okay, equals 5, that goes. Okay, so what are we memorizing? What are we learning today? We are learning that to create a variable name can be anything you want. Okay, something that will be easy for you to memorize in order to retrieve a particular value. It can be anything you want, and it must start with the letter followed by a combination of numeric or alphabetic data, okay, and the underscore. No other special character is allowed but the underscore, right? So that being said, you can create any variable, but in future, remember, it is good to create variable names according to the purpose for which you want to use a particular value. Okay, so if I want to store, for example, the age of a particular user, or say John, I will say age of John. Okay, this nomenclature is called a camel case. You notice that I'm starting every new letter with a capital letter. Okay, so age of John will be equal to should I say 15, and you store that. Okay, and the variable is truly what it is. A variable varies. Okay, so it changes value at any given point according to the adequate circumstance we want to use it for. Okay, so the other thing also that we have to learn in this particular section is that we cannot create variable names with what we call keywords in MATLAB. Keywords are, for a beginning, let me define it as built-in words that appear in blue each time you type them. For a beginning, okay, for a start, we will look at that in details later. So if I say, for example, if, are you seeing that? If becomes blue. You cannot use this as a variable name. That is a keyword. So equal to 5, it doesn't work. I can't say 4 equal to 7. It doesn't work. Okay. So the moment you type and you see a blue text, that's a keyword. You can't use a keyword like end, for example, as a variable name. It does not work. Okay. The other thing you should know is that MATLAB comes in with a lot of functions and a lot of predefined constants. Okay, those are built-in functions and built-in constants. So you cannot, it will not be advisable. It's not that you cannot, it will not be advisable for you to create names that have the same names as built-in functions from MATLAB. Okay, so for example, we've seen the sine function, right? We've seen the sine function that calculates the sine of a particular angle in radians. So if I say I cannot create I can create a variable sine is equal to 8, but this will not be advisable. Why? Because it creates conflict in MATLAB. Okay, at one point we will see what we call indexing, and if you're indexing here, then sine of 1, you notice sine of 1 becomes what? Becomes 8. But is this what you want when you're calculating sine? Maybe you want to put a certain angle here, right? And it's giving you the answer 8. So you see the conflict. It has overruled, okay, the built-in function sine. So you want to avoid this. Okay, so the way you remove, if you have already created such a variable, okay, the way you remove it from the memory of the computer is simply to use the command clear space the name of the variable. Okay, and that disappears. And now if I say sine of 1, then the original function has taken on its place. But then how do you know? MATLAB has so many built-in functions, so many built-in constants. How do you know, for example, if sine is a function in MATLAB? Well, you use the exist command. Okay, if I say exist space sin, it gives me 5. Okay, so it means that this function has 5 different existence in different spaces in MATLAB. So exist will tell you the number of functions that exist built in already into MATLAB. So you cannot use this. But if I say exist loic, for example, it gives me 0. So that's to say there is no function or no built-in constant known as loic. Therefore, I can use this as a variable name in order to avoid conflict. If I say exist pi, right? Pi exists 5 times. Don't touch, right? So the other one you can also use, you can say which, for example, sin. And this gives you, it tells you whether the function is built in first, as you can see that, and then it gives you the path. So this to tell you, if you see this, don't use this particular function as a variable name, okay? And let me say pi also, same thing, right? But if I say loic, then loic not found, okay? So I can use this as a variable name in order not to override something that I may need, okay? Good. So as you can see here, our workspace is very elaborate. The workspace here shows you all of the names that you've created and the values that you've stored in those different names, okay? All of the names that you've created in memory, all of the variables, okay? And these are the respective values that are found therein, okay? So at this present time, as we are talking, your memory, the computer memory is filled with these particular variables. If you want to free the memory from all of that, you simply type the command clear and everything vanishes, okay? So I think that covers it for variables. A last thing before we go, I want to give you a puzzle. If I say x equals to 5 and I say x is equal to x plus 1, what answer do you think that gives? Okay, I'm sure some of you have found it. It's 6, right? So you should know something. What is on the left hand side is the new value that wants to be created, and what is on the right hand side is always the previous value that was in the variable that will be used. So it is only after this computation with the previous values that the resultant value will be ascribed to the new variable. Okay, good. So that being said, I think that covers it for variables. We are good to go in the next lesson with data types. Okay, see you there. Bye bye.